Four divisions, four hosts, all battling it out for the Holy GrAHL of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy GrAHL podcast with Andrew Rinaldi, Deana Weinheimer, Jeremy Paul, Michael Liu, and Zack Powell.
Well, hello once again, friends, and welcome to, episode 14 of Field Pass Hockey's AHL podcast, The Holy GrAHL. Here at The Holy GrAHL, we are all about the American Hockey League and their yearly race to their Holy GrAHL, the Calder Cup. But as always, before we get a little bit too far into this, we're going to go around the screen here and introduce ourselves to anyone who may be new, or maybe you have a short-term memory, don't quite remember who we are. That's okay. We're going to make it easy on you. Just for a little bit of, adding a little bit of spice, we're going to start over here with my friend Zack, and we're going to go counterclockwise around the screen.
Sounds cool. My name is Zack Power. I'm a writer here for the Field Pass Hockey Network. We're now into episode 14, which is more episodes than I can count. Booyah! Up to you.
How's it going, everyone? In case you forgot this lovely face, I'm Andrew Rinaldi. I'm the beat writer here at Field Pass Hockey for the Chicago Wolves and Grand Rapids Griffins. So, reintroduce myself here.
What's up, everyone? I'm Jeremy Paul. I'm not too ashamed to say that I had to really think about which direction counterclockwise was when you said that, Deana. But I am right, Zack. I know. I write beat for the Rochester Americans for Field Pass Hockey in my first season, and of course, a co-host with you wonderful people here on the Holy GrAHL podcast. So, Deana, I think that brings it to you, the marvelous moderator. Hold on, that's like your new name.
That is my cool new nickname. I'm Double M.
Jeremy is just already fishing for right swipes here. We're only 2 minutes into the show.
I'm just wondering if we can fit monsters in there. I feel like we can. I feel like we can.
I more host the Monsters Musings podcast, but I could be a Monsters Musings marvelous moderator. I don't know. But anyway, I'm Deana Weinheimer. I am the AHL editor at Field Pass Hockey, as well as as Jeremy called me, the marvelous moderator. I'm quite touched. And I am also one of two Cleveland Monsters correspondents. I'm in my third year now. Boy, does time fly. And so that's your crew. Possibly Michael Liu might be joining us a little bit later. He's got a few other commitments that are pretty exciting. So we're giving him at least a partial night off, maybe the full night off. We'll see. But normally at this point, we get into some breaking news, but we don't really have anything breaking right now. There's been a lot of action in the American Hockey League over the past 7 days, but nothing really recently in the last couple that would be, breaking news. So,
and can we take a second to just inhale in that, to just find peace in the in the nothingness that is the last week in the AHL, because I feel like ever since we started the show, we have had absolutely no problem coming up with content or talking about any host of breaking news items. But this week it feels like we can actually just talk about the hockey that's happening. And that, my friends, is quite a breath of fresh air.
And there it is, your 60 seconds of weekly Zen here, brought to you by the Holy GrAHL.
Breathe in.
It gets wild from here on out. So don't feel like if you needed Zen, stop listening now and
do a few deep inhales and exhales, and then just remember to shake it all out. Get it through your system. All right, we're good. Okay. So let's go ahead and kind of talk about our week in review. And actually, Zack, I'm going to let you talk about the AHL Player of the Week because it is a defenseman for the Toronto Marlies.
Yeah, Filip Král becoming one of the top defensemen in the AHL over the past week. That for ending in the week of January 16th. And boy, oh boy, he's been playing well all throughout the past couple of games against Lehigh Valley and even with Belleville. He's found the score sheet for the Marlies in the past 4 games, tallying 2 goals and 4 assists through that time for 4 consecutive wins, I should say. That's a part of the Marlies' hot streak that they've been going through the past couple of days, really the past couple of weeks, I should say. I guess they haven't been hit with the COVID bug as much as some of the other teams. But yeah, he began with his week by registering a career high with 3 assists in the first period in the 5-4 win over Springfield on Monday. And he's also scored his first goal this season as a Toronto Marley in a 4-2 victory on Belleville on Wednesday. He found the net again in a 4-3 decision against Hershey on Saturday. And then on Sunday, GrAHL extended his scoring streak to 5 games, adding to the game-tying goal in regulation and helping the Marlies win in overtime. And I think that it might have something to do that there's a little bit less pressure because the Marlies are on their boat show road trip. That is a mouthful, but definitely some away fire for sure.
Yeah, and I was kind of looking over his stats, and like he's been a good producer, but he's nothing that like stands up and pops out at you. I think he was second in defenseman scoring on the season for the Marlies. So I kind of love when you see a guy catch fire who isn't normally like piling on the point totals. You know, I mean, we could always have another week of talking about Andrew Podorowski taking home a Player of the Week honors, but to see a guy like Král, who's kind of, I wouldn't say undervalued, but, he can sometimes fly under the radar here. He's playing good. Toronto's playing good. It's great for a guy like him to get some recognition. So, well done to him.
Well, moving on to some goal scoring news. Now, we know that sometimes game action can be pretty chaotic, and the goal scorers or the people that look at the goal scorers and do all that announcing, they really try their best and sometimes take a little bit of time to figure out who actually scored the goal, who assisted on the goal. And sometimes, we'll hear later in the game about an official scoring change, sometimes even the next day. But have you guys ever heard of a goal being changed on a Tuesday when the game was on Saturday?
Can't say that I have.
Yeah, I've heard of stat corrections, but that's some rewinding time.
Well, that has actually happened in the AHL. An official scoring change has now credited Rochester forward Jack Quinn. Boy, does that name sound just vaguely familiar, with the game-tying goal in Saturday's game against Belleville. So his hat trick has become the first 4-goal game now in the AHL this season.
That makes you kind of think about how much they're watching the games, how far back. Like, I wonder at what point do you start watching the games from the week prior sort of thing, and then say, oh yeah, let's just watch this game from Tuesday now and make a scoring change, I think.
I'm wondering if it was someone from Rochester that maybe sent something into the league saying like, hey, like our video caught this thing, maybe you guys should take another look at it. They waited a little bit of time to see if the league made the corrections. And then when they didn't, Rochester said, all right, we got a guy who's kind of, running up there with the goal totals. Maybe we want to get an extra look at this one, see if we can bump his totals up a little bit more here. So either way, I mean, the hat trick was impressive enough, but 4, that's, again, well done, Jack.
And I have to say that of course, right, like covering the Americans, I had to do a double take. I was scrolling through Twitter today and saw the Americans tweet, and that's Jack Quinn's 4th goal of the game. And I was like, do they randomly have a Tuesday game that I've just missed, that I have completely just totally forgotten about? And also, is Jack Quinn scoring 7 goals in 2 games? Like, what is going on? And so then I was like, hold on, no, this can't be right. Go back, obviously see the correction. And it's just, mind-boggling. To your point, Zach, it's just too funny to think about what that rotation must be like. And I think what Andrew says is probably right. I think somebody was like, hey, Scott, just have some information for you that you thought you might care to know about. And so, yeah, I wonder, I forget who that goal was originally first credited to. Was it Michael Mersch? Because if it was, I feel like I would be mad if I were Michael Mersch, because those two are in a dead heat for scoring between Americans forwards. So I'm just kind of curious. I got to go back and look.
I think the official goal scorer was in Sandals, Jamaica. and came back on Saturday and was like, yeah, I got to check all the games really quick, make sure they're all together.
What if
I'm
it
just
was
jealous
Jack
I wasn't
himself
invited.
just calling in, just being like, hey, you guys should take another look at this. Like, I'm pretty sure about it. And he totally played it off as just a member of the Americans front office, but it was actually Jack Quinn calling in to Scotthausen. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I love it.
I would love that. But apparently, Timo Meyer was channeling his inner Jack Quinn with those multi-goal games.
Yeah,
So-
channeling is Sergei Fedorov with 5. That was insane. And I played him in fantasy, of course.
So nice week for those that have Timo Meyer in fantasy. I'm quite jealous because I do not have Timo Meyer in fantasy. But anyway, moving on. Speaking of NHL veterans, NHL veteran Eric Staal is now in the American Hockey League and has made himself a presence quite early on into this newfound AHL career with honestly an amazing showing in his first contest, capturing the game-winning goal against Chicago Wolves. I mean, if you're going to do it against one team, that's the team to make a statement on.
Yeah, he actually he potted 2 goals in the 2 games against Chicago. His first one was in the first minute of the second period of another Iowa Wild win, and then in the second game he ended up scoring the overtime winner. So I'm sure a lot of Carolina fans that were tuning in to see some of their prospects were having some mixed feelings seeing an old legend like Staal coming in and kind of giving Hurricanes fans a feeling of what it was like to be on the other side for all those years. But this guy, I mean, he looked like he didn't lose a step, and it's incredible. He's going to be down in Iowa until, next month. I don't know what's going to happen afterwards. Maybe he's going to feel like, oh, hey, I still got this. And he's going to make a run towards, maybe a curtain call to his career. But that was a really impressive weekend from Staal. And to do it against a team that's just absolutely buzzing right now in the Chicago Wolves, I think that makes it twice as impressive.
Just for a little bit of context, I mean, the Iowa Wild right now are solidly a 500 team. They're 14-14, 2-2 versus the Chicago Wolves that are 24-6, 2-1. Impressive.
You have to think that there's a little less pressure too for Staal. I mean, when you're playing up in these NHL organizations, when he started with Montreal, he started on a pretty higher line. Definitely second or third line, maybe the beginning of the season. But as the season goes on, there's more and more pressure to perform. So when you kind of go down to the AHL, you hear these stories of these players going absolutely bananas into the scoring races because there's just so much less pressure down in the AHL. You're there to perform and get better.
And we're always talking about these veteran players that impart their wisdom on some of these younger guys. Well, imagine being Marco Rossi, first round pick down there at the Wild, and of all guys, you have Eric Staal showing you the ropes in the locker room and in practice and everything. I mean, you want to know what it takes to win in the big leagues. I mean, talk about a guy who was captain for the Hurricanes for so long, and a cup winner, and all the accolades from top to bottom. I mean, Wild fans have to be absolutely thrilled with that. To have a guy like Rossi, who, especially last year with him getting COVID and everything, all these struggles and everything, and now his game's really starting to look like it's rounding in the form. Like this could be about the best thing for them this season for sure.
Well, we do have one trade that happened over the past week, and that was Stephen Harper being traded from the Chicago organization to Tucson for the almighty future considerations. Now, I was actually a little bit kind of surprised at this because, I mean, last season, Harper was, quite frankly, the hero of the Kelly Cup playoffs. I mean, postseason MVP honors, led the Fort Wayne Comets to a title, 13 points, 12 games as a rookie. but he really just hasn't earned that opportunity yet on the AHL level. Just 6 games, very limited role, and I just wonder if that limited role isn't what prompted this trade to happen.
Yeah, I really highlighted this guy preseason as someone who might be able to sneak into the lineup and really start to contribute, given call ups. And I mean, we weren't understanding the level of protocols at the time or anything, but especially given his pedigree in the coast, I figured it was worth at least a shot. But I think that just goes to show you how deep this Wolves team is. And I mean, when you get your opportunities, you really got to make an impression to stay in that lineup, because there's no room, and there's so many other guys that are fighting for that one lineup spot that, I mean, you have to absolutely bring your A game every single night, or you're just not going to be able to play. And that's kind of unfortunately what's happened with Steven here. And I'm really hoping that he can go to Tucson and he can find that opportunity maybe a little easier, and he can really thrive with it, because there's no doubting his talent, and he can play the game, and he showed it at the coast. And even in his little limited time in Chicago, he hasn't been bad, I would say. It's just there's just so little room. You can only pack so many sardines into a can, and for all the offensive firepower that Chicago has, they don't need another. They don't need another high scoring forward. They need someone who can go into the corners and grind out a defensive game and protect those leads. And it's all about having a well-rounded roster, and just wasn't it for Harper in Chicago. Hope it is for Tucson.
I'd like to think too that they tried to shop him a little bit and hope that they got something out of him, especially considering some of his potential, having seen him in the coast. So I mean, when I look at a player like Harper, I think of the opportunity that Chicago might have missed. I mean, again, when you don't have that roster spot, you don't have the roster spot. There's no point of him taking up a spot in the press box with all that talent, but you wish that you could get something out of that instead of a future consideration.
Well, the nice thing about Harper is it's not like he's been sitting idle. We talked about, okay, he's only been given 6 opportunities, but he has spent some time with the Comets this season, 15 games, 18 points. So that, I mean, frankly, proves he has the talent. He just needs to get in the right system, and hopefully Tucson is it for him. And moving on to our next little talking point here. It's been well publicized, but we need to talk about it a little bit, guys. Rhee had his number retired with the Boston Bruins on Tuesday. But a real cool tidbit that we're going to tie this into the show here. He actually played 56 games in the AHL, 21 goals, 24 assists. Just a true pioneer.
Yeah, and he is actually the first Black player to play in not only the NHL but the AHL as well. And we're going back to the 60s, I believe. I know he played with the Nighthawks in 76, I've read today, but he played a couple of games before that as well. So it's great to see a pioneer now in the Hockey Hall of Fame and his number retired.
I don't know really what else I can say about him that hasn't been said. I mean, he is just not only, a pioneer, but he is such an amazing ambassador of the game. He is just always so pleasant, so well-spoken, so willing to reach out into communities, and it's not like it ever seems to be bigger than who he is, or maybe the notoriety or the expectations of him. It never seems to really overwhelm him too much. He always just seems to take such pride in the role that he's created for himself, and being such a great representative of everybody that looks up to him, and all the players of minorities that have come up after him.
And I mean, it's no accident, right, that, he's got an award in hockey named after him, specifically given to folks who do exactly what you just said, right, Deana? The idea of advancing the game for folks who, quite frankly, have been intentionally left out so many times and for so many years. And, getting the chance to take time, of course, it's great to take time to think of Willie Rhee and his contributions to hockey during a moment like a jersey retirement or what have you, but also hopefully just encouraging the listeners to continue to stay abreast to the folks who are still doing this work, who are getting nominated for those awards every year. I mean, take time to read up on those folks and the amazing work that they're doing too, because they're all doing it in Willie's honor and being honored in his name, right? And so just really incredible things that people do in the sport of hockey to try to advance the game that I feel like we don't take enough time to talk about. But I think on an occasion like retiring Willie Rhee's jersey, it's really cool to be able to take those moments to think about that as hockey fans.
I think sometimes this league can kind of drop the ball when it comes to marketing itself or marketing its stars, but I think that they've done an excellent job in showing Willie Rhee and his importance in the history of growing this game. And it's just, this is another chapter in that, and we just love to see it.
I mean, and we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up that he is an honored member of the Hockey Hall of Fame with the 2018 induction class, along such amazing players and humans Martin St. Louis was in that class. Marty Brodeur was in that class. Of course, NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman was in that class, among others. Their names are escaping me right now, and I apologize because I was there that weekend in Toronto. I went to the induction ceremony and all of those festivities because, no shame, I'm a huge St. Louis fan. I had to go. Just the fact that Willie was getting inducted at that same time was such a nice addition into that. And so, yes, I just had to bring up that, yes, he is an honored member, just another accolade to a very worthy person in my mind. But we're going to go ahead and move on and talk with another little piece of NHL news. Yes, we are an AHL podcast, but I promise this does tie in. But the NHL is actually planning on dropping, I believe the word has come out that they are actually dropping the mandatory testing for asymptomatic players. And honestly, this could have some massive implications on the AHL and ECHL prospects, maybe returning to a sign of normalcy.
Yeah, we'll see how it's handled. I think the idea is that after the All-Star break, they're gonna dial it back a bit here. And in terms of affecting the AHL, I think you're going to see a reduction in the taxi squads, and we're hoping for normalcy, right? That's the idea. Every time I think we're about to turn okay, it's starting to feel normal again, that's when something bad happens. So yeah, I'm not this pessimistic, people. I promise. I'm just it's the Rona. It's doing this to me. So it sounds good in practice, and I'm hoping for the medical staffs and all the teams to do what's necessary to keep people safe and healthy. And we're gonna get this on track, and we're gonna have a playoff, and we're gonna finish it out, and it's gonna be beautiful. I hope.
It's just period. That's the end of the sentence, right?
Leave it there. Don't touch it. And just put it away. Don't touch it.
I just think it's so. I was reading. a ridiculous stat that was something near 65% of the entire NHL has been put into COVID protocol over the course of the last X amount of months, which then obviously means that those 65% of players don't have to get tested per the NHL's COVID policies for, I think it's 90 days. I could be off by a few days there, but I also, this is me being the interesting kind of person where I'm this is nefarious in some way. I'm all of your star players in your league are going to an event where they all could possibly contract COVID, possibly asymptomatic, be asymptomatic, and that's when we're gonna stop the asymptomatic testing. I don't know. It's just like, I don't hate it as an idea, but still, part of me is just like, interesting timing. Interesting timing.
Well, it could end up being maybe helpful for the leagues, or it could end up being a massive oof. And by the way, speaking of oof, time to move on to our oof of the week.
Nice
That
segue.
was yeah. Hey, there we go.
I think that was Jeremy's camera's the oof of the week.
My camera just knows what the oof. My camera just knows what the oof is, so it's like, I'm gonna leave for this one.
And the reason why Jeremy's camera may be trying to leave is because this has to deal with his Rochester Americans. And as much as we talk about Jack Quinn, it somewhat involves him, but maybe not in the way that you may be thinking. So, Jeremy, would you care to explain to our fine listeners at the Holy GrAHL podcast what this week's oof of the week is?
I would be more than happy to do so. So the Rochester Americans, I wrote in my piece on Wednesday, in my game recap, I said, what an opportunity for the Americans, right? Like, Utica has been definitely above average, right? But like, Utica looks somewhat vulnerable. I don't know if that's the word, but I was like, Belleville is coming to town. The Belleville Senators in your home arena. This is your opportunity to take the weekend, couple easy wins, no disrespect to my Belleville fans, and walk out feeling pretty good. And I could not have been more wrong. The Rochester Americans dropped both games to the Belleville Senators this weekend, both in overtime. So obviously, like, one in the shootout, one in overtime. So obviously getting some points out of it. But Jack Quinn's four-goal performance that we just talked about goes down in vain because, of course, and really, like, that fourth goal happens with 4 seconds left in the game. Like, realistically, they probably didn't deserve that extra point on Saturday. But the Americans, like, listen, my oof is, this is the first time we're talking about the Americans on this podcast in a way that might draw some concern. Their goaltending situation's shoddy, like, with all due respect to Matt Robson, who currently has a 5.2 goals against average. In his defense, he was the goaltender that was forced to give up 10 to Charlotte. So we talked about that a few weeks ago. But has an .840 save percentage. And then backing him up is Charles Williams. And he's, ECHL goaltender. He played on Saturday, but obviously gives up 6 goals. And this team can score, but it needs some help on the back end, and it's not getting it. Jack Quinn is going to score, 45 goals this season, and it might go in vain.
I don't think I've ever seen a situation where I've seen a team score the most goals in the league and give up the most. Now, the Americans are 2 behind the fan favorite San Jose Barracuda in terms of goals against, but I think you bring up a real valid point, and I think we talked about it earlier this season where other than, they had UPL, but as soon as he got the call up to Buffalo, that kind of left them really thin in terms of their depth in net. So yeah, you're gonna have to. It's a return to 80s hockey in Rochester. You're gonna have a lot of 7-5 games in the lineup, which, I mean, I guess is fun to watch. It's what the fans want. I don't know if it's necessarily what the coaches and the organization wants, but no.
I'm just shocked that he is doing that good. And then, you have things like this happen where they lose to teams in the bottom of their division. It's an oof. It's an oof.
But you say bottom of the division. I think there should be an asterisk at the end of that. This is bottom of the North Division, which is a whole new kettle of fish. So anytime you get an opportunity to maybe get one in, you want to take it.
Okay, that is completely fair.
Could you imagine
how about a team that's under 500? Would that be a little bit more fair?
That would be.
Belleville is at .484 points percentage. So
I will say that my hot take was originally that Belleville was going to make the playoffs, and then I got scared of it and I deleted it. But could you imagine if somebody like Andrew Podorowski like played in the North, where he got to go up against like defenses like Rochester's, and he got to like light it up? I don't think they play. I don't think they play this year, but I would be very curious to know how that would go.
Well, I guess their series against Texas, he had 10 points in 3 games, I think it was. So, just food for thought.
I'd love to see it, though.
We'd all love to see it.
I think I'm good.
You can. Just you wait.
All right. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to our swipe left or swipe right segment, where my fabulous co-hosts here will be sharing their hot takes on hockey, the AHL, and the rules are just like in some of your favorite online dating apps. If you don't like the opinion, we're going to swipe left. If you like the opinion, we're going to swipe right. If you really like that opinion, we're going to super swipe up, but we only get one a month. So we're going to go ahead and go in alphabetical order. So Andrew, take it away.
All right. I got a bit of an interesting one this week. So I'm really not the biggest fan of the current point scoring system in regards to the overtime rules. And we had a chat with Andy Mealy this past weekend talking about his experience in Sweden. And I propose that the AHL changes to a system like the SHL uses, which is a 3-point system, and it works like this. Teams will get 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for a win in overtime or a shootout, 1 point for a loss in overtime or a shootout, and 0 points for a regulation loss. So really all you're doing is adding an extra point for a regulation win. I really detest like this coin toss of 3-on-3 hockey. It's starting to feel real gimmicky, kind of like the shootout. And I don't know if we want that kind of hockey to determine a playoff race down the stretch. It's one of those. I understand we have to have a winner, and I really want to give an incentive to teams for closing out games in regulation. And I think the incentive of an extra point is going to change the way that teams approach the game. Instead of playing for overtime, playing it safe, I think you're going to see teams a little more aggressive, especially down the stretch, and it'll create just that much more buzz.
It kind of gives a soccer vibe, right? Like the whole idea, and it's something that I've always I've used my super swipe. I think I've already used it. So in spirit, I swiped up on it. They were like, "Hey, like you've got to like pay the extra $14.99 a month if you think you're doing this." And I was like, I'm good on it. But I will then follow it up with a swipe right, because I mean, it differentiates, right? And I think the leagues have like tried to do this a little bit in terms of like tracking regulation wins, overtime wins, like trying to break it up a little bit like that. But ultimately, right, like the ability to separate the difference between a regulation win, which obviously, right, is like more of your traditional hockey, like what you would expect, gets away a little bit more from the gimmicks, like you mentioned. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's something that not only the AHL, the NHL, I think everybody should implement it, because I think it differentiates the game. Like, and I think it rewards quality 60-minute play, and it challenges folks who can't get it done in 60.
Your profile intrigues me, because when I seen the first 2 pictures, I was like, and then you had this beautiful, beautiful picture. And we got to see what your Spotify playlist was like, and all the other good stuff that comes on like the second or third slide. And so I'm intrigued enough to ask to swipe and ask a few questions, because I'm in the same kind of boat where but the other side of it too is I kind of like the 3-on-3, the more real estate per man. And I do get there's opportunities where it's like, oh, well, we won the face-off. We're going to skate it around and we're just never going to get a whistle for the rest of this overtime. This is great. Right. But I do agree that there has to be some sort of incentive to kind of play better and to kind of make it not go into overtime. You say, oh, I'll get a couple points out of this at the very least. Right. But, well, if you could stop your opponent from getting that all together and play the last 3 minutes like it's overtime, why not? So.
God, and that's so painful in division too. It's just like so painful because you're giving up points, free points in your division. At least this would give you like it would still work to separate more than a 3-point game does right now.
If you were to ask me, I would have, whenever the rules changed to 3-on-3 originally, I would have swiped left on this because back then 3-on-3 was new. It was exciting. You didn't know what the players were going to do. The other players didn't know what the other team was going to do. But now it's a lot of the same types of plays over and over and over again. It's not really as exciting anymore. Every once in a while you see a team change it up and try something new. But now it's just so repetitive and it takes kind of the excitement out of it, in my opinion. So yeah, I would definitely be swiping right on this one as well. So, all right.
Not to go too far off topic, but do you remember like the first like year or so where the AHL was the only team to have the 3-on-3 and how exciting it was for like that just little, oh, it's like Christmas. Oh yeah, it's going to go to overtime, 3-on-3. This is different. And then now it's like Groundhog Day.
Well, I remember when they first brought the shootout in right after the lockout, and it was like, ooh, shootout, and for me, I got to see, Pavel Datsyuk and just pull out of his crazy bag of tricks, and it was fun at first, and then when it starts deciding playoff races, and it's like, oh, again a shootout, really, it's again, I understand why it's there, and I'm never going to ask to bring ties back because A, no one wants to see a tie, and B, it's a relic of ye old time hockey, and it's the game's evolved and it's changed. So I would like a little bit of help from our European brethren over there, and just give it a try, and even if you want to start off in the coast, see how it works, and then we can implement it to the A, and then if we really love it, then we can move it on up to the show.
I respect it.
I like it.
I do.
All right, it's time to take a look at Jeremy's profile here. Are we going to swipe left, swipe right, or will he maybe get a super swipe? Let's see.
Not to be egotistical, but I feel like I probably take the least like hot take routes normally, and so I feel like I get a lot of swipes. But I feel like this is not going to be my reality this time around because I'm here to talk about the North Division playoff race. Specifically, Deana, I don't know. I do know what's going on with the Monsters, right? No goaltending depth. No, right. So it's hard. I don't think Cleveland's going to make the playoffs this year, y'all. So that's the first part of my hot take. And my second part of my hot take goes back to our earlier conversation about the Rochester Americans. We've talked all season about how it was Utica, Rochester. No ability. I mean, 3-6 was going to be interesting to watch in the North, and now it's 3-7, right? Toronto is like 4/1000ths of a points percentage, but like behind Rochester right now. And I don't think Rochester is going to finish second. I think Toronto is going to finish second in the North. So Cleveland doesn't make it. Toronto finishes second in the North.
Oh.
You want to start?
You can't. If you can't have me,
it's yeah. I guess I'll.
Because like the way I'm thinking about it is, I'm in too many beds right now to be committed to one mattress, and I don't think that I could be committed.
No, we got to pause on that. We got to let that one marinate. You got to let that one. You were just going to go by it. I want the listeners to take a second to hear what you just said. to process it, and then to move on. Do you guys remember 35 minutes ago when we were breathing in and out together? Not anymore.
This is the moment that we were talking about where it just all goes to chaos.
It's always Zack.
If it's not fire, it's 2 mattresses.
Okay. Long story short, I don't want to predict the playoff picture for the North because it's the North. That's all. I'm done.
So you just closed the app? You just deleted it?
Zack just left the building.
All right, well.
To continue on that point, that was my hesitation with that is that this take is just going on some recent trends in the North. And yeah, Rochester's struggling. Toronto's, they're hot. They're on fire. Cleveland's kind of falling apart there. But is this a result that's going to continue for the next? I mean, we said that this division was going to be nothing but absolute chaos. We're feeling good about it now here on January 18th. Next week, the whole script can be flipped with one weekend. So yeah, it's your takes. They always have these nice shots of bikinis on the beach and everything, and those get a lot of swipes. But you know what? I need more than that. I need to show a nice personality that I can get attached to. So I'm gonna have to swipe left. I mean, there's just not enough to go with the hot pictures that's gonna reel me in on this one.
Hey,
so
I will take the fact that you said I had hot pictures on my profile. You're the first one. So
absolutely. Yeah, that was a hot take. Let's be real here.
Thank you.
I'm going to do a little bit of shameless self-promotion. If you would like to know a little bit about how I feel about at least the Cleveland part of this topic, and if I am concerned about the play, please listen to this week's Monsters Musings podcast where we discuss this at length. So I won't bore listeners with the same diatribe twice. But yes, go over to that episode and you'll be able to find it. Maybe about halfway through.
Spoiler alert, she's worried.
I think the long and the short of it came down to we are, but we aren't because of reasons X, Y, and Z. So anyway, Zack, take us home.
Ooh. Okay, so there's all this talk of, or there was, if the Coyotes go, Quebec City and Houston and all this stuff. Like, let's just bring it down to bread and potatoes really quick. Let's just bring back the Aeros. Like, the Houston Aeros were such, I know so many people from Houston and that were fans of Houston at the time, and they were just purely crushed to see them go, right? Like, at what point can we just bring them back and even give them, if we're not going to give them an AHL squad, let's just give them another AHL squad again. I mean, San Antonio lost their squad and Houston lost theirs a couple years back. So let's get more hockey back down in Texas.
I will swipe right on this just so they can wear some Gordie Howe era throwbacks and really kind of start to turn it on here in terms of the aesthetically pleasing jerseys. I'm already in love with the Abbotsford Canucks, so let's make it some more. Yeah, I'm all about this.
And I mean, any situation that takes Texas hockey fans away from only having the Stars to latch onto is a win in my book because that feels like a harsh existence. And so, yeah, I'm gonna give it a swipe right. I think a lot of people get really excited about major markets that are in terms of population, right? And I think they always earmark that for the NHL. I think they're always oh, this is the 4th biggest, or I could be off by a couple, city in the United States. They need an NHL squad. And I think sometimes that's just it's a nice idea in theory, but it doesn't always deliver. But I think there's a market there for hockey. It's just, can it be in the form of an AHL team? I don't see why not. I mean, you look at some of the other markets, with no disrespect, some of the other markets in the league, right? I mean, they're not Houston. And if you can develop a culture there, if the AHL is successful, then maybe we can have a conversation about those Arizona, Phoenix, Glendale, Tempe Coyotes. But for now, bring back the Arrows. I'm all aboard.
I was just looking at some of their old jerseys, and oh, those are nice. Some of those old ones, they're beautiful. I would totally be down to buy a handful of those at the right price. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to our scoring races, and we're going to talk about a few familiar names here. But looking at the top skaters in terms of points for the season, I just have 2 words for you guys. Chicago Wolves. They currently have players in the top 3 in points in the league. Stefan Nason, huge 8 points since we recorded a week ago, catapults him up into the number 2 spot. Of course, friend of the show, Andrew Podorowski, sitting squarely at the top with 47 points, 10 ahead of his teammate Nason. And then, of course, we have CJ Smith down in that 3rd spot. But not to be outdone, you have 2 players from Rochester right behind in Jack Quinn, Michael Mersch, 4 and 5. You also have 2 players from Stockton on there down at 8 and 9, Jacob Pelletier, Matthew Phillips. But yeah, Chicago showing you how hockey is done.
I don't know what more to say about the game that these guys have been playing that we haven't said in the last 3 or 4 episodes. It's incredible to watch night in, night out, and Podorowski's leading by example. He's doing what a captain should do, and he's really kind of started to find an extra gear ever since showing up on our pod. So just kind of shout out to anyone else who might be interested in showing up. It's proven, as we've also seen tonight with Jonathan Berggren scoring 4 assists, 3 of them primary. We're just good luck here, folks. I mean, tell all your favorite AHL stars to come swing by for a visit if they want an extra push up in the scoring race. But yeah, I don't want to repeat and bore everyone where I'm like, oh hey, Podorowski, Nason, Smith, they're really good at hockey. Like I've said it all before.
I think a part of it is because I haven't jinxed anybody yet this episode, but I would like to say that in the top 9, I mean, 7 of them are all from the same 3 teams. And I think that says a whole lot about some of those teams that are up near the top, right? And Cole Schneider is in 10th, and that's pretty well the lowest we kind of dip in the standings for a little bit, kind of in that sort of sense. They're all on pretty well winning teams. So, I mean, for Chicago, the top line is there. It's position, center, right wing, left wing, right? So who's setting up who. So it's pretty cool to kind of see that.
Well, now we'll go ahead and look at the goals. And again, Chicago is on the top of the world, looking down on creation. And that includes the goal scorers list. It's their league right now. Andrew Podorowski, number 1. Stefan Nason, number 2. But yeah, it's Chicago's lead right now. Prove me wrong.
CJ Smith's really, really lacking. He's only got 12 goals, man. He's got to catch up to the rest of the line. I don't know what gives. That was a joke, folks. That was a joke. CJ Smith's playing some great hockey right now.
I know. I'm still trying to figure out a way I can get some more of the Cleveland Monsters on here to get their game going, possibly. I might be sending a few emails after the show. After they, if you didn't know, we record on Tuesday nights, and they just got beat by the Grand Rapids Griffins 5-3, which, yeah. Anyway.
Tell us if you've heard that before, the Cleveland Monsters losing to the Grand Rapids Griffins.
Yeah, stop me if you've heard that one. Name a better rivalry. I'll wait. Anyway, one thing that's a little bit more intriguing about the top goals is you see a little bit more variety in the teams. Of course, you have Scott Rhee with the Gulls. He's in number 5. Of course, Martin Firk's still on there, but you also have Pavel Dorofeyev out of the Hendersonville Silver Knights, Sheldon Dries out of Abbotsford. Of course, you got Matthew Phillips in Stockton, and then again Cole Schneider out of Milwaukee. So it isn't just the top teams. You have a little bit more better representation up and down the standings here.
Dorofeyev, I think, was one of those names that we had in like week 2, where you had some guys that had an opening weekend or two and looked really good, and they were up here in the leaderboards. And then as the season went on, the hot start kind of cooled off, and they just went back in with the rest of the pack in the league. And now you're starting to see Dorofeyev come back up and really kind of put that Henderson team up there with some big goal totals. So I would love to go revisit the archives and see if that's in fact true, or if I'm just confusing it with another Russian name that looked difficult to pronounce. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, yeah, that's it.
Well, that's why we have the archive, so we can reference them. But let's go ahead and take a look at the young guns here, the rookie point getters. Jack Quinn has retaken the points crown for the rookies, but guess who's surging up our list? Former guest and another friend of the podcast, Grand Rapids forward Jonathan Berggren. A 5-point week launches him from 8th to 4th, and as we just discussed, he had a 4-point night tonight, setting up to be another good week. How much further can he get up this list before we record next?
Ooh, you better be checking your rearview mirror, Jack, because here comes Jonathan. All we need is get him like one more spot and up here on the pod, and it's game over. But no, he's really, really been turning his game around, and not turning his game around, but he's been turning it up in Grand Rapids. And this guy, as we see tonight with his 4 assists, he's really put. His playmaking skills are unbelievable. I think we've all kind of seen that. But this past week, I've started to notice that he's definitely been trying to shoot more and to work on a shot. And for as much focus as he gets for his passing and his vision, he's got an incredible shot. And Manitoba's Leon Gavanka saw just quite how shifty he was in that overtime last weekend, when he just kind of had his ankles absolutely broken as Jonathan lifted the overtime winner into the corner. And just primo goal. And he's just gotten better and better with more ice time and more experience here in North America, and he's not done. He's going to keep growing and keep getting better. And I find myself very fortunate to be in a situation where I get to watch him grow in real time.
I would like to think it has something to do with the trip to IKEA as well.
It's
a little bit.
Yeah, it's reconnecting with his hometown. Yeah,
I think the Griffins might start catering IKEA into Van Andel at this point. If that's really the answer, I feel like they'll get it done.
I had an interview earlier this month with Victor Brattstrom, the backup goalie for an other resident Swede of the Griffins. And for as much as I enjoyed having Jonathan on and his bubbly Swedish personality, Victor was also a lot of fun. And I would love to bring him on as well, and we can talk more IKEA and meatballs, but that's still TBD. But it was wonderful.
We're gonna have to pick another Swedish phrase for you to learn to end the show.
I can't really tell them Merry Christmas in February.
That's probably fair. Happy Valentine's Day, or is that weird?
Say what?
That might be a little weird.
I said Happy Valentine's Day, or is that weird?
That'd be a little weird.
Hey, you know what?
But yeah, rounding up the top 5 for those points getters, of course, Jack Quinn, Rochester, Jacob Pelletier out of Stockton, Matthias Michelli out of Tucson. We don't really hear a whole lot about them, but he's doing quite well with 27 points. Then again, Jonathan Berggren out of Grand Rapids, and JJ Peterka out of Rochester. And then, of course, if you go to the AHL.com, you can check out the rest of the top 10. You have a nice showing of a variety of different teams. So the kids are all right. Looking at the goals again, Jack Quinn up at the top, Scott Rhee out of the Gulls in second, Lucas GrAHL out of Rockford with 12 goals, Jacob Pelletier 11 out of Stockton, and then Alex Steeves from Toronto also with 11 goals. And right behind, just got to mention, because he also has 11 goals, Tyler Madden from the Ontario Reign.
I have to say, what's fascinating about this, of course, you've got a couple of Wolves right now leading the league in goals overall. But if you look at both Jack Quinn and Scott Rhee's goal totals and their games played, they're both scoring at higher clips than the Wolves guys who are up there producing. And so another hot take, no swipes needed. I think one of those two is probably going to end up leading the league in goals before it's all said and done, as long as Buffalo doesn't keep messing with Jack Quinn. And you know, so it's going to be Scott Rhee because Buffalo's definitely going to do that. So Scott Rhee is going to lead the league in goals. But yeah, I mean, it's impressive to see the way that these rookies are producing. It's just mind-boggling to see that they're not afraid to put it in the net. And I mean, like, even like Alex Steeves, he's also producing at a pretty high clip, 11 goals in 20 games.
I'm kind of with you on that one, but I'm gonna my prediction is gonna go for Lucas GrAHL. I mean, he's been just doing nothing but producing. He on Monday he had another goal and assist against the Wolves because he just loves playing the best team in the division and scoring lots against them. So I asked him earlier to take it easy. He clearly didn't listen to me, so I'll ask again. Hey, maybe just not score so much against the Wolves. Come on.
Lucas GrAHL looks 12 in that little thumbnail picture on the AHL website, so he's probably yelling, "You're not my dad. You can't tell me what to do." And is going and doing what he wants. He's being a little rebel. But let's go ahead and go over these goalie stats real quick. Whenever I looked at this, I thought maybe the site was broken because, you know, we're used to seeing Akira Schmid, Alex Lyon, you know, Dustin Wolf, and Andrew Hammond in the top 5. Well, it is almost a completely different top 5 this week for the top goalies for the goals against average. So we have, again, I said, Chicago is at the top of everything right now. Goaltender A2 Makaniemi out of Chicago is your leader in terms of the best goals against average. Then Dustin Wolf out of Stockton moving up a spot into that number 2 position. Alex Lyon, well, Dustin Wolf just played leapfrog with him, basically. He's in that 3rd spot. So again, 2 Chicago Wolves goaltenders in the top 3. I mean, come on, that's insane. Number 4 is Joey Decord out of Charlotte. And then we have Troy Grosnick out of Providence. That's a team we don't really get a chance to talk a whole lot about the podcast. Comes in at that number 5 position.
Yeah, well, they're going to kind of force us into talking some more about them because we'll kind of, you know, allude to it later on when we talk about the standings. I won't quite mention it, but there's going to be a bit of Bruins talk. As we said last week, where, you know, to kind of stay in the top, you got to have really good numbers and then not play. Well, Makaniemi is unreal as he was earlier in the season. He's kind of dealing with, I believe it's a back injury, but don't quote me on that. And he's been out for a couple of weeks now. I think he's got maybe one more week on the shelf, and then they'll reevaluate him. You know, kind of disappointing not to see him more, but, you know, Alex Lyon, whenever he's not up in Carolina, he's more than capable up to the task, as we've seen here. And it's just more of just the glut of talent that the Wolves have in every area of the game. It's just silly. I don't want to just keep talking about them because, like, again, this isn't a Chicago Wolves pod. It's an AHL pod. But when you're at the top, we got to say something. I don't know, man.
And, you know, and that's the perfect segue to go ahead and talk about the quest for the Holy Grail and the Providence Bruins. because we start right off in the Atlantic Division. We're just going to go east to west like we always do. And stop the presses, guys, but we have a new leader in the Atlantic Division. The Springfield Thunderbirds are no longer the top team in the Atlantic. The Providence Bruins have upset them and now has that number 1 spot, courtesy of a 3-game win streak.
And a 4-game losing streak for Springfield. So you just got 1 and 2. We're just heading in totally opposite directions here. Hershey kind of stumbled, so they weren't able to quite take advantage and jump over Springfield as I was hoping for. But, yeah, it's starting to look like some more of that absolute chaos that we all love and see. So, Providence kind of started off slow out of the gate, but here they are looking down on everyone else. It's great. This is what we're here to see.
I don't think it helped either that Hartford's been, I don't want to say a slump, but they haven't really been too well. They've been pretty well even throughout the past couple of games, really. And they were on such like a hot streak, so there wasn't really a whole lot of wiggle room. But now that some teams are kind of, I don't want to say falling off the wagon a little bit, but not performing as well as they were, it kind of opens things up. And now it's open season, so you don't know who to really put at the top of the division or at the bottom. So it makes for an interesting ride.
And I feel like for the last few shows, we've been like, oh, here comes Hartford. Springfield better look out. I mean, they were tied a couple times. Like, I just feel like we all were like, it's going to be Hartford. Hartford's going to do it. And then Providence just shows up like out of nowhere. Just like Big Bird, like hitting the door down, just shows up. And it's like, actually, it's going to be me. And it's been written in the tea leaves, right? Like, we saw this coming. Not saying we called it, but we kind of called it. And it'll be interesting. Also, check out toward the middle of that division. Charlotte's also 7-3 in their last 10. Although Springfield, as we're recording, Springfield did beat Charlotte. So Springfield ends the skid. Charlotte, a little bit of a hot streak, dampered a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting division. And I feel like it's one we don't talk about very often on the show. And I don't know if that's just because we don't have any beat writers like actively like in the Atlantic, but yeah, it's a fascinating division to watch.
We have Corey and Corey Schwartz.
Corey.
Yeah.
We need to get Corey back on here to talk about what's going on.
You need to talk more chocolate with Corey.
We'll just have a new, maybe like every other week guest segment, Talking Chocolate with Corey Schwartz. But yeah, the quick rundown. We have Providence 1, Springfield, Hershey, Hartford, Charlotte, Lehigh Valley, Bridgeport, and then bringing up the bottom is the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins.
To me, it says a lot about a team's goal differential. And I'm looking at Springfield, and they've only scored 2 more goals than they've given up. I mean, they were riding really hot with Scott Prunovich back there on defense, but it's been kind of middling for them ever since they've lost their stud D-man. And Hartford, they've only scored 4 more goals than they've given up, whereas Providence has scored almost 20 more, and Hershey's also looking, and even Charlotte's looking way better in that area. So you got to wonder if Springfield and Hartford just caught on these early hot streaks, and later in the season, is this gonna level itself out more? If these trends follow, we could see these 2 teams that kind of dominated early on in this division to kind of fighting for their lives in the playoff spot.
Well, let's go ahead and move on over to the North Division. No surprise here, but the Utica Comets are still sitting a square on the top of this list. As we brought up before, Cleveland is falling and falling fast, now down to 6th. Other than that, it's pretty status quo. We have Utica, like I said, number 1. Then we have Rochester, Toronto, Laval, Syracuse, Cleveland, and Belleville is down at the bottom of the list.
Like I said, I don't think I have my heart set on the standings being the way that they are. I think that there's still so much contention, and all it takes is for Cleveland to kind of get healthy again and kind of get back on that horse sort of thing. And it could be a totally different game where once again they're up in that number 2-3 spot where they were not too long ago. I want to say a couple of weeks, but COVID feels like a couple of days sometimes.
Yeah, really not having Daniil Tarasov right now, which he is officially on the Blue Jackets roster, but I believe is officially on IR with the Blue Jackets. But for a while, even their other member of the goalie tandem, JF Berube, who actually came back and played in the game against Grand Rapids on Tuesday night, he was up and he was taxi squatting up with Columbus. So they were relying on Jack Greaves and Cam Johnson. And for a while, they had a PTO goalie in there, and it's been a really hectic and difficult goalie carousel, which, again, we talked about this on the Monsters Musings podcast. It's not an excuse, but boy, are they missing having that nice, stable goalie tandem of Berube and Tarasov.
Well, I think you can say that about the rest of the North, right? Like you see the teams that are excelling right now. You've got Toronto 7-3 on a 6-game heater. You've got the Rocket 7-2-1 in their last 10. Same for the Crunch. And what they have, the other teams might not right now, is at least some depth in net. I mean, sure, a couple of these teams have pretty solid, starting goaltenders, but I mean, you look at the depth, right, and it's just not there. And you can't imagine. I mean, you look at Rochester situation again, like I can't imagine that changing anytime soon. Akira Schmid is going to be up in the NHL for a considerable amount of time, like we've talked about on the show. So Utica's not getting any help, in net. And you look at the rest of the team. I mean, the Monsters, like you just said, Deana, and I mean, Belleville's got 2 really solid prospects in net. And so it's a matter of, can the goaltending sustain for any of these teams in the North? And I don't know the answer to that question at all.
Look at the trends for the teams in 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We highlighted those before as just like the group of death. You got Toronto coming in at 7-3, Laval at 7-2-1, and Syracuse finding their game as of late also at 7-2-1. So who's gonna give in that North, man? It's gonna be tough if Cleveland can't turn it around quick. They could find themselves in a hole that it's gonna be. I mean, there's a lot of hockey, a lot of season left to play, but they're gonna have to hope that those teams in front of them just beat each other up to climb back into that.
Wait, can we just take a moment? This is No. Is this the first time all 5 of us are on at the same time?
This is the first time all 5 of us are on at the same time.
Whoa. And it fixes the issue of like not being able to read the names of some of us. This is great. All we needed was all 5 of us. We needed a full Steven strength line.
Look at that.
Iconic moment.
Of course.
I love
it. We got to write this one down on the calendar, in the archives, special moments.
Back to full
So,
strength.
Michael, now that I have my muted microphone issue fixed, welcome onto the show.
Good to be back.
Yeah. And if you guys want to know a little tidbit as to why he wasn't here, stay tuned for a future episode, and you'll get a little bit more information. It's super exciting. Andrew kind of alluded to it earlier with a guest that Zack and I talked to earlier this week, and you'll be seeing that later too. But we have a super special episode coming up for you guys. But let's just go ahead and talk real quick about our friends in the Central Division standings. So literally the exact same standings as last week. The C for Central can also stand for consistent. We got the Chicago Wolves right, sitting pretty on top. Then we have Manitoba, Grand Rapids, Chicago, Iowa, Milwaukee, and the Texas Stars bringing up the caboose.
And I remember talking with the guy who's in the center position right now next to me about the Texas Stars. It's like they almost have the team. Like it still amazes me that they're near the bottom of the standings, and I actually think that they have the league's worst record at the moment. But like you look at the Texas Stars, and there's not that many holes to kind of poke in their game that you would kind of allude to where they are today?
Yeah, I guess I gave them a kiss of death when I was like, I don't think Texas is that bad. And they were like, okay, well, we'll show you. And here we are. I said that after watching a series with Chicago playing them it was Grand Rapids had played them. And I was like, I know they're down there, but they don't look that bad. And then when Chicago played them and blew them out of the water, I was like, oh, maybe I was wrong. But again, I don't think that. I don't know what it is, if it's a confidence thing or if it's a mental thing. Because when you look at the roster on paper, it's like you said, there's not like some glaring holes that have just been feasted upon by other teams. And frankly, the Central Division doesn't have other than your Manitobas and Chicago's, it doesn't have a lot of teams that just go in and will knock you out. Texas can easily go into a series in Rockford and steal a couple games, or go in and to Milwaukee or in Iowa. It's no team in the Central other than Chicago and at times Manitoba has really looked that otherworldly. So I don't know what the issue is in Texas. We might have to bring our Stars correspondent on to talk if he has the heart to do so, because that could be a very tough interview for him. But we got to figure this one out. It breaks my heart to see them down there.
Tyler, if you're listening, let us know. We'll make time for you.
Call into the show.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a look at the home of Michael's Abbotsford Canucks out in the Pacific Division. We had a lot of jostling in the center of the division here, but the top two still standing put was Stockton and Ontario. Rest of the division goes Henderson, Colorado, Bakersfield, Abbotsford, Tucson, San Diego, and San Jose.
I mean, it's tough. This division, obviously you have the Reign, you have the Heat. They're very good hockey teams, and they deservedly are 1 and 2 right now. But you can make a case for any of these teams really to get themselves into that top half. I mean, if you look at the recent records, Bakersfield's found a very good run of form, and I mean, part of that is because they did beat the Canucks like 4 games in a row to start off 2022. It was a rough run, but I mean, Bakersfield's starting to get things together. Colorado's gone on a good run themselves. They're 6-0-1. I mean, Henderson, what to say? The new arena seems to have given them new life. And Abbotsford, after a really rough start to 2022, finally got the first win of the calendar year. So you never know. The only 2 teams that really haven't done much, unfortunately, are the San Diego Gulls and the San Jose Barracuda.
Yeah, it's a little lonely down there at the bottom of the Pacific. But I'm starting to really. I've tuned in to a couple of these Colorado Eagles games lately. Now I've been having my trend of picking them for my game of the week. So like, I got to tune in now, right? And I'm really liking what I'm seeing. Actually, like, I had so much early season attention on like Stockton and Ontario, and I'm admittedly I get some tunnel vision sometimes, but I'm trying to fill out. I'm trying to show the love.
I just remember at the beginning of the season when Colorado was down at the bottom, and we were just wondering, can these guys even get going? Well, looks like they're doing okay. So Andrew kind of alluded to it with our picks. So we're just going to go ahead and get right into my co-host game of the week predictions. So we're going to start off just like we did the standings. Go ahead and start in the Atlantic, and let's just go alphabetical order. So Andrew, you have the honors.
All right. I got this next coming Wednesday's game. I got Providence going into Utica. Well done, Bruins. You're now looking down on the rest of the Atlantic Division like a billionaire in your very own spaceship. And Utica's really been doing that since day one to the entire league. And while they've kind of started to come back to earth a little bit, they're still just an incredibly dangerous team. So you got 2 division leaders going at it. It's going to be a hot pick.
I think for me, I think it's, talking about, the team that has fallen from graces. It's talking about Springfield. And again, like we talked about here on Tuesday night, they get a win over Charlotte, and there's a rematch coming on Thursday. And so I'm looking forward to it. So Charlotte obviously has been on a little bit of a heater. Springfield, not so much. And it's going to be fun to watch that rematch. I think Charlotte's going to give them everything they want and more.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be a good game to listen to on the Field Pass Hockey app. A small plug, but a dandy, and another dandy, which is going to be Hershey and Wilkes-Barre Scranton. I think that the Atlantic Division, like we talked about earlier, is kind of opening up, and I think this does give opportunities for teams like Hershey to kind of prove me wrong at the beginning of the season and start moving up in the leaderboard.
The third place Hershey Bears, just checking in. The third place, is that right, Zach? Third?
No, that's not what I said specifically. I didn't agree to standings. First round. We'll see.
April and May can't get here soon enough, in my opinion. So anyway, let's go ahead and travel west a little bit to, northwest to the North Division.
So in the North, I got Monday's matchup with the Marlies going into Grand Rapids to take on the Griffins. I mean, you want to talk about 2 of the hottest teams in the league. By recording time, Toronto's won 6 games in a row, and the Griffins have collected points in 8 in their last 10 games and have one of the best home ice advantages where they've got points in 7 straight at Van Andel. So, I mean, something's got to give. Gotta love to see what we see on Monday.
I'm personally really excited for the goaltending battle between Rochester and Cleveland, 2 teams that have just absolutely wonderful depth in net right now, who could really I'm thinking it's going to be a 1-0 hockey game. 1-0 is my prediction. No, between the 2 games they play this weekend, 20 goals minimum 20 goals, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Jeremy, you're breaking my heart over here, but at least
mine too, girl.
Yeah. And yeah, those are back-to-back games, guys. Just, if you want to watch some goals, there you go.
Yeah, it's hard to dispute those picks. It's gonna have to be that Cleveland Rochester sort of deal. And I like I said earlier, I still do think that Cleveland does have it in them. Maybe not at this second, but at some point they will. But nonetheless, it still should be a good game. And I think Rochester's not without some of their players that they've been missing as well. So that kind of evens out the score a tweeny bit.
All right, so we're in Cleveland. We're just going to take a hop, skip, and jump over to the Central Division.
So I got Saturday's game with it's actually an afternoon game. That's 2:00 Central Time, with the Wolves going into Manitoba to take on the Moose. I mean, seemed kind of obvious to me. You got the top 2 teams in the division, going for a weekend series north of the border. We talked all about Chicago's gaudy offensive numbers for, who knows how many episodes. But I've been saying for months, do not sleep on the Moose. And this is a heavyweight showdown, and I can't wait to cover it personally.
I didn't even look to see who they're playing. Any game that features Eric Staal and the Iowa Wild, I'm watching it. So that one.
Yeah, I'm sitting here kicking myself that I didn't think of that personally, because I'm here saying that it's going to be Texas and Rockford. I mean, Rockford is actually doing a lot better than where they were at the beginning of the season, now up to the 4th spot, I believe. But they still don't have that great record yet. So maybe this is an opportunity for Texas to kind of be able to get out of the basement of the league.
And last but not least, let's look at the Pacific.
All right, going out west, I got Friday's Iowa and Colorado matchup. I said last week that the Eagles need to steal some points out of division to climb up the standings, and they did just that by sweeping Milwaukee. They got another Central Division opponent coming into town, but with their new weapon in Eric Staal and coming off their own weekend sweep of the Wolves, the Wild are really feeling confident. So it ought to be a barn burner of a series.
Things we've learned: when Andrew says it comes true. When Zach says it, not so much. Anyway, I tend to think that the matchup between the Roadrunners and Ontario, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think specifically because you've got Stockton. Zach's got a little bit of a preview of a game for us coming up, that Ontario's closing back in, right? Like, so maybe I'm not too far off on thinking that Ontario is going to be the team that held on and finished first in the division at the beginning of the season. But yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to watch and see if they play with a little extra pep in their step, knowing that Stockton looks vulnerable right now.
And that's the thing with my pick too, is with Henderson and Stockton. We talk so much about Stockton all year long and how well that Stockton is doing, and it's great when they do kind of match up with Ontario sort of thing. But I have to think about Henderson, who's actually been playing very well ever since the new arena. We talk about last year versus this year. The difference is really night and day. And I think that they've started to find some more chemistry on ice. So they're going to give Stockton a good run for their money. And we talked at the beginning of the year about how well the Pacific Division is. Well, maybe it's time we start talking about that again.
All right, that's our picks. And if you would like to watch any of those games, go ahead and go to watchtheahltv.com. They are doing their half-season markdown specials. So if you don't have a subscription yet, now's the time to do it. Not a paid advertisement, but we wouldn't mind if they would, like to send a little bit our way. Let's go ahead and get into the Holy Grail bonus round. And Andrew was our winner last week of my fascinating, is it a wolf or is it a pig bonus round? So Andrew, what do you have for us today?
So I kind of want to dial back a little bit and looking at those the point leaders, and I just Chicago having just not one, not two, but the top 3 point producers in the league is that's something to come out of EA's NHL series. I mean, it's just absolutely absurd. I mean, literally, this kind of production is unprecedented. So I'm going to ask for a comparison for you guys here this week, but something a little more reasonable. And that's going to be which was the last franchise to finish the season with 3 players in the top 5 of AHL scoring. And I'll just give you a hint. It's not like a defunct franchise. It's not like a St. John's or something. It's a franchise that is currently in the league.
Can I just on a whim, just choose chaos?
Is it? Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
My chaos is they score now. I'm sure they scored before. Chicago. Let's go Chicago.
I was going to say Chicago, but did you say finish? Because I remember Nigel Dawes got traded from 2010, 2011, but he was
this is end of season.
I'm still going to go with Chicago, but it's probably not the 2010, 2011 season then.
I'm going to go with the Hershey Bears.
Okay.
I'm thinking that early 2000s when you had Keith Aucoin and that whole crew there. That's my pick.
I had as soon as he said that, I said Norfolk, the 2012 Norfolk team, and now you got me racking my brain. But I think it's going to have to be Hershey because they've just always been good in the past 20 years or more. So I think I hate to double up on a pick, but I'm going to have to go with Hershey on this one.
All right, so we got this side Hershey, this side Chicago. Jeremy and Michael, it was the Chicago Wolves.
So it wasn't 2010, 2011, but when was it?
Well, for the tiebreaker, y'all are going to have to give me a year, and the closest one wins.
Take a dollar.
The closest one. You can't say the year one. There's no.
Okay, wait.
The year 1990.
Hadar had a ridiculous 122-point season. Isn't that one 0506 or something like that?
I'm gonna $1 you and say 06, 07 because I'm trash.
It was 06, 07. Michael,
Works.
you had the right stats, Michael. You did not. You picked a year too early. So in 2006 and 2007, Darren Hadar finished at the top with 122 points in 73 games. Brett Sterling finished fourth with 97 and 77, and coming in at fifth was Corey LaRose with 83 and 63.
In my defense,
Wow.
I was like 5 years old when this season happened.
Oh, I get it.
Rub it
we're old. I
in.
get it.
Jeez, I feel so old.
I do
I'm turning
apologize.
38 next month. Jeez.
Are we gonna have a birthday episode for you?
I'll light the
maybe.
candles.
You won't.
My birthday
Exactly
is on a Sunday this year. But if we want to
Oh, it's on
celebrate, we
Sunday?
can.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that is actually going to be it for the Holy Grail this week. But a little plug, keep tuned to all of our social medias. You will have the links to those in the closer. But even though the American Hockey League's All-Star Classic was postponed yet again, we will still have some bit of All-Star coverage here at Field Pass Hockey with our own All-Star Classic list. So right now we're currently putting all our heads together, figuring out which players on every single team are going to be put up for your vote. And then we're going to need your help in getting your favorite members of your team onto our list. And we get to actually reveal the list on the show coming up here in a few weeks. So that's exciting. Stay tuned because your favorite players need your vote. And as always, if you like us, please subscribe, like, share, rate this podcast, tell all your friends. And if you really like us, give us a follow on Twitter and reach out to us there. We love talking to you guys. And be sure to check out all of our written work on fieldpasshockey.com and check out all of our other podcasts inside the SPHL with James Hayes, the 3 Periods podcast with Matthew Harding and Matt Will go over everything you need to know about the ECHL. And then we have 2 AHL podcasts. Syracuse Speaks with Alexander Ackerman gives you everything you need to know about the Syracuse Crunch. And then, of course, Monsters Musings with Andrew Guarino, myself, and Jay Forster. On behalf of my lovely co-hosts here at the Holy Grail, we hope you have an amazing week, and we'll see you all next Thursday. Bye.
This has been the Holy Grail Podcast. Have a question or a topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.